All right, here we go. We're live. Um, Thanks everyone for joining. I'm this is my I've done what half a dozen live streams now, so I'm still finding my feet. But yeah, thanks for joining. Just checking to make sure everything's working properly. Uh, Let me know if you can't hear me or anything. If I'm coming through fine. Um, I'm Colin LaSwear. I'm by Wits and Spirit RPG. And Yeah, I'm here to talk about my Kickstarter, which is called Runecairn Wardensaga Remastered. So I've got a couple of monitors that I'm looking at. So if you see me looking around, then that's what's going on. Um, cool. Black Veil says audio is great. Thanks. All right. Yeah, so this is going to be kind of a chilled out stream, giving me a chance to give an update on how the campaign's going. Um, Liza says, fine on my end. Greetings from Sweden. Thank you. Uh, hey, I'm learning a bit of Swedish right now. It's pretty rudimentary. Yeah, so I'll give an update on the campaign, talk about what's to come, and then also talk a bit about compatibility with Runecairn, because it's an Into the Odd based game, Cairn Into the Odd based. So I'm going to talk a bit about what that means in terms of compatibility. Can you run Cairn adventures with Runecairn rules and vice versa, that sort of thing. Right. So you might have heard, if you're waiting before the stream started, some new music. So bear with me as I faff around a bit. I'm going to add some music to this stream. I'm going to put it down a bit low since I tend to speak a bit low anyway. This is new music for Runecairn. This is hot off the presses. Right. Let me know with that new music how the levels are, if you can hear me okay, if you can hear the music okay. It is a bit quiet and a bit like ambient, but that's kind of the nature of it. So that music is from Of Sleeping Bears, Nick, who did my companion EP for We Deal in Lead as well. He did some cool spaghetti western dungeon synth. So now he's working on a companion EP for me for Warden Saga. And this is the hot off the press, the first track in progress. Still great. Excellent. Thanks, Black Veil. Cool. Yeah, so I'm fairly new to Kickstarter as like a creator. I had a Kickstarter 3 years ago now, I think, for just a supplement called Mysteries of the Mists. It did okay, like it met its target, but it's nothing like the success I'm seeing with Runecairn, which is awesome. Um, so I'm really happy with like how the campaign's going so far. So we're what 4 days in now, and smashed through the funding target, the funding goal, which was £6,000. Beat the first stretch goal, which was £8,000, which was to add bookmark ribbons for the hardcovers, the standard and the variant. And then 12,000 was for the Into the Nine Realms PDF. So Into the Nine Realms is going to be a collection of one-page dungeons for Runecairn that I'm going to collect into a PDF. So cartography, descriptions, everything on one page. So you can use them as like drop into an adventure, like a one shot, or a part of a longer campaign. So the next stretch goal I've just added. I've kind of done it ass backwards and slotted one in between stretch goals I had already. I thought it would be good to have one for additional illustrations, additional art for the Into the Nine Realms. So that's at £16,000. We're getting close to that. And then at the moment, the final stretch goal is 20,000 for a print run of Into the Nine Realms. So everyone who backs at a physical level or above will get a copy of Into the Nine Realms, if and when we hit that target. Yeah, variant looks great. Thanks for that. Waiting on the kind of final covers, final versions coming through of the covers, but can't wait to see what that looks like. If I figure it out here, bear with me a moment as I faff around again. I'll add in a I'll show you what the cover looks like, what the covers look like at the moment. Okay, you can see here, I'll reduce that a bit. Right, so this is the cover from Crom, or at least the sketch of it at the moment. Can't wait to see what the final result looks like. And so Crom did the cover for Wardensaga, the original version of Wardensaga, and he smashed it out of the park. I can't wait to see the final version of this one. So that's the work in progress cover for the standard version. And I will show you the sketch for the painted version as well, if I can find that here. Okay, there we go. Should have prepped these ahead of time, but here we are. Okay. So this one's a fully painted wraparound. It's going to cover the front and the back of the hardcover. And this is from Annemieke van Berlingen, an artist in Belgium. And she does amazing stuff. So this is going to be watercolor painted. And it's going to look really, really cool. So yeah, I can't wait to see both of them. Like the final versions of those covers. And I haven't announced it yet, but I've drafted in Felipe Faria to do some art for Into the Nine Realms. So that's the artist I've reached out to. I've worked with him before on the Bestiary and We Deal in Lead. He does great stuff, really crisp, like line work. So yeah, we're really excited for that. So he's going to be doing some scenes from the adventures in Into the Nine Realms. So that's if we hit the £16,000 target, which I think we will. We've got 26 days left. So Black Veil asks, will either of these be Kickstarter exclusive or will both be available after the campaign ends? So the idea is for the variant cover is probably going to be a Kickstarter exclusive. Once I'm out of the initial print run of that, it'll probably be exclusive. But I don't want to cut people off if they don't have the capability to back it now. So we'll see. That it's still up in the air. If of the two, that one might be the exclusive one. But we'll see. Hopefully they'll still be available, but we'll see if we'll see what people say. Basically, do you want, like, would you prefer having it be a Kickstarter exclusive, or would you prefer it being available? I might put a poll out on Kickstarter if there's the capacity there for it, and ask people what they think. That's a good question. So as of today, we're closing in on £14,000. So hopefully over the next few days we'll hit that £16,000 target, unlocking the illustrations, and then eventually before the 22nd, which is when the campaign closes, we'll hit the 20 grand and unlock the Into the Nine Realms printed zine. So I'm excited to include that with people's pledges. Just bear with me a moment. Yeah, if anyone has any questions as we're going, just let me know. Just ask it and I'll answer. Pretty informal at the moment, as you can see. Yeah, so there's some exciting stuff coming. The patches, I'm really excited for people to, like, I'm excited to see what they look like in person. I think they're going to look pretty cool. I've seen some example patches that the company's done, and they look really good. They're embroidered so that they're a bit 3D, like the stitching is, you can feel it raised on the patch itself. And they're going to be about 75 millimeters, which is maybe about that big, something like that. So a decent sized patch, iron on. So I think they're going to look really cool. And of course, the prints that come with the higher bundles, those I'm gonna do. I think it's at 5 prints. So there'll be of covers of previous covers for Runecairn. So including the new cover from Crom and from Enemica. Those will be included in the prints. So, yeah, so the campaign's going well. As always, there was a spike at the beginning, and then it kind of plateaus off. As always, it's good for people to share it out and let, if you're excited about it, then let people know, and we can get those stretch goals met and unlocked. So I really want to send out that Into the Nine Realms zine with everyone. I think that'll be really good. So yeah, that's the kind of the current state of the Kickstarter. Where it stands with future projects, future plans for Runecairn. Once this is all done and delivered, I do have kind of more things ticking away in the back of my head. Something I've been threatening for 2 years now is a new Runecairn adventure. And I think I've kind of got a grasp of that one now. So that's called the Icebound Grave. So that's going to be at the moment a short-ish 12 to 16 page adventure, with a town, a dungeon, a boss, standard stuff. So that's coming down the road. And then also I plan on doing a magic supplement for Runecairn. I like the magic system at the moment. It's pretty typical OSR, old school type magic, where you cast spells. There's spells that you can either learn or find in the world, and then you can cast those as an adventurer through a focus or through some kind of mechanical mechanism. So standard stuff like you've got a runestone that you carry, and that runestone allows you to cast a spell that's etched on the runestone, that sort of thing. So what I did in We Deal in Lead is I did something called rituals. So there's no magic, so to speak, so in the world of the drifted world in We Deal in Lead, magic in that kind of Vancian methodology that I referred to previously, that doesn't really exist, but stuff exists like rituals. So it's a bit more esoteric, and the outcomes are not always guaranteed, and it's a bit more of an art than, like, I cast Lightning Spear, and it does what do you expect it to do, that sort of thing. So I want to bring that kind of ritual template into Runecairn and theme it around like actual or like Scandinavian themed or Viking themed magic. So I think give it a bit more flavor and root it a bit more in the setting of Runecairn. So I think that'd be really cool, having like rituals that you can learn, and it'll be a different approach. Like, you can still use the existing magic system, but the thing about Runecairn and the Nine Realms is that things are in flux. There's still like old magic everywhere that you can tap into. So this is going to be a different form of it. So Tyler says, rituals exciting. Yeah, I'm excited too. I think it's pretty cool. It'll give a bit more flexibility to how you approach things. So like in We Deal in Lead, you have an outcome that you're looking for, and there's you have to have the ritual has to be documented somehow. There has to be a plan for it. So you have to know what to do in the ritual, and there's chances of it going wrong, and there's like catastrophic things that can happen if it goes wrong. So I want that kind of a model in Runecairn, or have an option for that kind of a model, because I think it's cool. It gives a bit more choice for players, like how they want to approach things. So yeah, that's down the road as well. And then more adventures. More water. I think I've been so focused on like setting up Runecairn, the world, the mechanics, and the Bestiary. So now that the Bestiary is out in the world, this is it here. So again, this is one of the possible rewards in the Kickstarter. There's some bundles that come with the Bestiary. So now that the Bestiary is in the world, that allows me to craft adventures that have different types of creatures in it, and gives a bit like more scope to the world, and kind of gives it a bit more shape. Because I deliberately left it high level when I was doing the world building, just to not be too prescriptive, and to let people make the world their own, and to let the wardens run it in their own way and what fits best with their table. But also, like, I think it's good also to give a bit more shape to it now. It doesn't have to be so high level, and I can start filling that out a bit more. Now that I know the world and know the system better in my own head, I can start playing with it and doing different things, which I think is really cool. It's like there's a lot there. There's a lot of scope there to play around with it. And especially when it comes to like segue into compatibility. So with other Into the Odd based systems, there's kind of compatibility from the other side. There's in We Deal in Lead, there's built-in compatibility with Runecairn, because We Deal in Lead exists in a world outside time and space, or like in where time and space doesn't quite, like, it's falling apart. As in where the inspiration comes from is Stephen King's The Dark Tower. The world has moved on, so things that used to be hard and fast rules, like the laws of physics and the laws of time and space, break down. So you can travel to different worlds and different settings. So baked into We Deal in Lead is the idea that you could travel to different genres too. So I've got a really cool one-shot that I ran for Exalted Funeral Con a couple of years back, where I took a party of gunslingers through Beneath the Broken Sword, which is the introductory adventure in Runecairn Wardensaga. So what an adventure that was written for like one Viking adventurer, essentially, was transformed into a gunslinger centric adventure. So they just showed up, like popped into the cave and had to maneuver their way through it. It was really cool. I mean, obviously that's not going to work for everyone, but you can take that kind of idea and like have some Runecairn adventures in other Into the Odd systems. So got some, so bear with me here. I do have a blog post that I sent out, or that I posted, about compatibility. Or where? No, it wasn't. Oh right, it's on the Runecairn website. So the Runecairn website is runecairn.com, and there's some good resources there, like a character generator, delve generator, character sheet you can download from there. Some really good resources. And I know this isn't super interesting at the moment, but bear with me. Yes, here we go. So odd-like compatibility. So I'll share this. Actually, let me share it in the chat if you're interested in having a look here. The Fresh Peg asked, any more plans for cons? Yes, I'll get to that in a second. But excellent question. So, right, odd-like compatibility. So as it says, Runecairn is based on Into the Odd and Cairn. You can run Runecairn with different adventures from those other systems, just with a bit of tweaking. So adventurers, so Runecairn adventurers, because because resilience, which is my version of HP hit protection, your ability to avoid damage in combat. Resilience is made up of two figures, vigor and vitality. So that means you roll 2d6 for resilience instead of 1d6 in Cairn and Into the Odd. So you'd roll 1d6 for HP in Cairn, for instance. So you have a bit more survivability on the outset. So Runecairn adventures tend to be a bit stronger and a bit more robust than adventures in other systems. So yeah, the other thing to consider is that characters aren't lost when they die, because Runecairn is based or is inspired by Dark Souls. So when you die, death is not the end. You respawn at the last bonfire you sat at. So because of that, the adventures and the monsters of Runecairn tend to be a bit tougher and more aggressive, because there's a bit of give and take, that the adventurers can still keep going even if they die a horrible death. That's not the case in the majority of games. So just bear that in mind. You can consider upping the challenge if you're running a non-Cairn or non-Runecairn adventure for Runecairn adventurers. Try upping the challenge, because otherwise players might find it a bit easy. But again, this is all dependent on your party. There's no, like, in Cairn and Into the Odd and Runecairn, there's no such thing as balance, or balance isn't a real consideration. If your players face something, or if your adventurers go up against something that's too tough for them, then they'll either need to run, figure a way around it, or fight and die, basically. You won't be able to beat everything that you come up against. Okay, I'm going to split my monitor here, just so I can keep an eye on things. There we go. Right, yeah, so bonfires, again, that Dark Souls influence. If you're running a dungeon that wasn't built for Runecairn, so like a Cairn dungeon, for instance, then put a bonfire at the entrance. That's kind of a general rule of thumb, a good rule of thumb. And if it's multi-floor, then have one at least on each floor. You can also, if there's like a boss or a mini boss at some point in the dungeon, consider putting a bonfire after that fight. So your players don't have to navigate and run through all of the little minions that they've already defeated potentially multiple times, in order to get to where they were. That kind of thing. Another rule of thumb is, because gold doesn't really have, there's no real function for gold in Runecairn, because it's a souls economy. So souls are your XP, and it's your resource. It's your currency. So swap out gold treasure for soul remnants. So a soul remnant is basically a soul in physical form. So in Dark Souls, it's the equivalent of like the soul of a lost undead or something like that, where it's a physical object. If you break it open, then you absorb the soul into yourself, and then you can either spend it or use it to increase your own strength. So yeah, swap out gold for soul remnants. So Cairn uses spell books. So kind of a similar idea. Like in Cairn, anyone can cast a spell if they have the spell book. They have to hold it in both hands and then kind of proceed with casting the spell. Except in Cairn, they use spirit instead of will for to cast that spell. If the if the situation calls for like a need to cast or the need to roll to see if you can cast a spell successfully. So Black Veil asks, is there any guidance included in Remastered around the idea that need to throw balance out the window? Yeah, so in the it's kind of addressed in the principles. Like there's principles for the warden and principles for the player. It's kind of, it isn't explicitly spelled out like there is no such thing as balance, but in as many words it's saying that like you need to tread carefully. The world's a dangerous place. You're not going to be able to win every fight, and if you can't if you can't succeed now, then try again later, that sort of thing. So it doesn't say there is no such thing as balance or CR doesn't exist, but it points to that fact through the principles, if that makes sense. Then I've also got some guidance around converting monsters, because Runecairn uses 4 stats: Strength, Dex, Wits, and Spirit. Oh, hey, Nick. Nick is the composer of the music of Sleeping Bears. Yeah, glad to see you. Music's sounding great, so thank you. Yeah, so 4 stats. In Cairn, there's only 3. There's Strength, Dex, and Spirit. So I wanted to... The original reason for that, for choosing 4, was to have Strength, Dex, Intelligence, and Wisdom. So to follow across the model of the 4 classic archetypes that to me, the 4 classic archetypes. It depends on who you ask how many they see. So warrior, thief, magic user, and priest or cleric. So that turned into warrior, skald, scout, and seer. So the skald is a bit like a cleric and a bit like a bard. So that was the reason for the 4 stats, and it's just evolved from there. Yeah, so there's guidance around converting monsters. So this is the same guidance that was in the Bestiary. So it's good at avoiding damage, give it resilience. Does it soak damage, then give it defense. Is it strong, give it high strength. Nimble, high dex. Clever, high wit. And charismatic, high spirit. Oh, sorry, did I say... I said spirit earlier for Cairn. Spirit should be will, or willpower. Catching myself up. Tyler asks, how would you distinguish between wits and spirit when it comes to saves? Could you talk about the different situations where you would use one versus the other? Yeah, absolutely. So wits aligns more closely to intelligence, in my head at least. And spirit aligns more closely to wisdom. So a wits roll would be for like cunning or investigation, or if you're trying to like deduction, that kind of thing. So a wit save, you might try, like you might roll a wit save to say, hold on, something's not right here. Like the information you've given me doesn't match up with what I've known, or like trying to like use it for something like yeah, just kind of like general like intelligence save or cunning. Like if you're trying something especially devious, then you might roll a wit save. And then spirit would be something about your either charisma or your motivation, your drive, and also like it's more inward facing rather than outward facing, I'd say. There's some crossover between spirit and vigor, which is kind of intentional because it started off that the Skald used getting myself tied up in knots. I wanted a stat that was the equivalent of faith in Dark Souls. Faith or humanity. So in Dark Souls there were two stats. There's faith and humanity. Humanity is your like drive to keep going, your what sets you apart from the hollow undead. So I wanted something. There was a stat to correspond with that, and then I wanted a stat to do with like faith, or like your if you're casting miracles, essentially in Dark Souls. So that turned into eventually I separated those out so that there was a separate spirit stat and a separate vigor stat. So vigor is your self-determination, drive, and focus. What stands between you and the hollow void. So vigor is a separate stat, but there's a little bit of crossover with spirit. But yeah, spirit I tend to look at as more wisdom if you're used to more traditional D&D paradigms. So when you'd use a spirit save, if you're trying to resist the effect of a charm spell, for instance, or if you need to like overcome your self-doubt, like there's some abilities or some effects that will say it gives you like you're overwhelmed with powerlessness or the feeling of powerlessness, and you have to overcome that. So that would be a spirit save, for instance. Sorry, it was a bit rambling, but yeah, hopefully that makes sense. Okay. So I was talking about monsters and converting ability scores. Sorry, just get another drink of water here. So in Cairn and Into the Odd, I touched on this a bit. What they refer to HP, I refer to as resilience. Tyler says, thanks, that was helpful. Cool. Will gets either turned into wits or spirit, and this relates to Tyler's question here. So it says consider the ability score guidance when converting will or heart. Heart is from We Deal in Lead into wits and spirit. Because I've split willpower into two stats, which is wits and spirit. So for powerful creatures, roll d6 plus 10 for their other ability score. So if you'd convert over, like, if they have, let's say, 12 will, and you'll turn that into spirit, for instance, because they're a particularly forceful or self-aware creature, then you'd roll a d6 plus 10 to get their wits score. Or depending on what type of creature they are, it might be that they have like a low wits. Like animals, for instance, would have a low wit score. So you can kind of pick what feels best for that. Armor is the equivalent of defense, and critical damage. So critical damage effects in Cairn. So if you're fighting a monster and it inflicts an attack on you and you suffer critical damage because of that attack, then there's a special effect that happens following that critical damage. So turn that into what I call a dire strike, which is if you roll max damage on a damage die, then that's a dire strike. So there's occasionally additional effects. So you get some particularly nasty creatures or monsters. Say they've got a d10 for damage. If they roll a 10 on a d10, then there's an additional effect that happens. So that's to replicate the idea of a critical hit, because there's no to hit rolls in Runecairn. You hit automatically. So to kind of get that idea back of, I rolled a critical hit, and that like kind of buzz and that adrenaline from a critical hit, that you can get a dire strike, it also functions like exploding dice. If you've run across that mechanic before, where if you roll a 6 on a d6, for instance, you keep rolling, and if you keep rolling 6s, then that keeps going and it keeps rolling. One difference in I don't think magic bypasses armor in Cairn, but in Runecairn it does, so magic is especially effective. So I've got a note saying magic does not bypass armor in Cairn or into the odds, so consider increasing resilience or strength accordingly. So if you've got something that's incredibly tough, but magic will just rip right through it, then depending on what the situation's like, then you might want to increase that, like tweak that damage a bit. So I've got specific rules here on converting We Deal in Lead adventures. Not sure why. There might be situations if you're running, like, say if you want to do a reverse We Deal in Lead and have a band of like Runecairn adventurers in a We Deal in Lead adventure. Oh, we've got a special guest star here. That's Freya. She's come to supervise. Yeah, so if you wanted to run Runecairn adventurers through a We Deal in Lead adventure, then you convert grit to resilience, and you convert heart to wits or spirit. And critical damage effects become dire strike attacks, because I've got critical damage in We Deal in Lead. Tyler says cat. Yep. Yeah, she likes to supervise. Then I've got some guidance on if you wanted to run some OSR adventures, so something like Old School Essentials in Runecairn, then because Old School Essentials has 6 stats, that has the classic 6 stats, so you take an average of strength and con for strength, intellect or intelligence becomes wits, wisdom and charisma average that, and you get spirit. 1 resilience per HT for creatures as a standard rule. Humanoids have at least 4 resilience. Most undead have less than 3 wits, and most animals have less than 6, so kind of general guidance. And there's a lot of times in OSR games there'll be a morale, so you can use that as a baseline for how powerful the creature is. So I've got some guidance on like items, or when it comes to like armor, because OSR games like Old School Essentials tends to use AC, armor class. So light armor, which is the equivalent of leather and gives 1 defense. Medium armor, which is the equivalent of chainmail in Runecairn, gives 2 defense. And heavy plate gives 3 defense. Shields add 1 defense. And damage dice are roughly equivalent. So if you wanted to convert a Runecairn adventure to a different system, then follow the same guidance but in reverse. Other systems may not have adventure respawning, so encounters are likely much deadlier. So if you're running a group through Beneath the Broken Sword, then you might have might be a hard time. But you know, that's part of the experience too. All right, so that's kind of a whistle-stop tour through compatibility. Again, there's a bit of like finger in the air. There's no right or wrong answer if you're converting something. Sometimes, like in running through an adventure, you might not even look at the 2 stats like wits and spirit. So you might not have to do a lot of converting just off the top of your head. But I'd like to, I want to try running Runecairn into in different systems or different adventures. I think that would be cool. So that might be something I try at a later date. All right. Does anyone have does that make sense about compatibility? Any questions about compatibility? I know it's a question I get a lot because there aren't a lot of Runecairn adventures at the moment. And someone made the suggestion of having a Runecairn game jam. It's definitely something I'm mulling over. So keep an eye and an ear out for that. I think that'd be cool. I did one for We Deal in Lead last year, and got some good results from that. Oh, one thing I should mention, because there's a big Mausritter Kickstarter that's live right now. So my friend Matt Morris and Tony from Plus One EXP are running a Tomb of a Thousand Doors Kickstarter. So it's basically a Mausritter mega dungeon. So I had the good opportunity to play in 2 games on Tony's channel. That in a adventure that, or a 2-shot that Matt ran. So that's a lot of fun. So that's live right now too. So if you're interested in Mausritter, then that's a really good like resource and mega dungeon to look out for. Because you could run Runecairn adventures through Tomb of a Thousand Doors with pretty much minimal conversion. Just run it as is. Even with, like, it could be that the adventurers have fallen through a portal and, like, found themselves in this dungeon that's populated by human-sized mice and, like, monstrous serpents and stuff like that. So you could run it as is, just like that. Liza says, will you do any live playthroughs? Sorry, my chat isn't showing up properly there. Luckily, like, nicely, there's like an emoji reaction thing right above your text. Okay, so any live playthrough of the game before the campaign ends, or is it the old videos for gameplay? I'm trying to, yeah. I'll see what I can put together to have a live playthrough, because I think that's useful to see, for people to see how it runs. There are a couple of existing playthroughs, and the rules are pretty much the same for those old ones. It's just like been refined. So in the meantime, you can check out those old actual plays. But I'll see what I can do when it comes to, like, having a live playthrough, like, for the campaign, because I think that would be useful, because a lot of people want to see how it runs, and because that's, you know, a large part of it. Absolutely. So I'll see what I can do is the answer. Right, just gathering my thoughts. Normally I've got like, I know I've tend to galloped through this. I'm still finding my way. Okay. Black Veil has an excellent question. Where do you envision the Runecairn play experience to fall on a spectrum between the traditional RPG, NSR or otherwise, versus a video game, like its influence Dark Souls? So I think that it sounds like a cop-out answer, but it's more down to the warden and the table, what they want to run and what type of game the players want to experience. Because you can totally run it like you were playing Dark Souls, like pure action kind of, like kick the door down, slay the monsters, that sort of thing. Lots of death, lots of respawning, dynamic combat. You can absolutely play like that. Or if you have a table that's used to more traditional NSR games, like Cairn and Into the Odd, they might want to take things a bit slower, because even though death isn't the end, there's still a limit to that, because every time you die you lose a point of vigor. So you can't just throw yourselves against the same monster over and over and over like you can in a video game. So you can take it a bit slower. So there's scope in it for both. which is a bit of a cop-out answer, but I believe that. Like, I think it's like you can play it how you like to play it. So I tend to play it a bit more cautiously, and because the players that I play with tend to be a bit more cautious too. But if you've got like a rowdy group that wants to play Viking Dark Souls, then absolutely, that's this will work for that too. So Nick said, I'll be sending you an updated version of this track here shortly. Hearing in spoken context, some levels need to be adjusted. Cool. I can also reduce it a little bit myself. I tend to speak low anyway, so reduce it a little bit. So Blackveil says, not a cop-out at all, dig it, thanks. Yeah, no problem. And Liza, sorry, said, I've watched a few already, but thanks for the answer. Yeah. Yeah, I will try to get more actual plays out there. There was one, I don't know if you saw it recently on the Weekly Scroll. I did a playthrough. Sorry, I should have thought of this too. Because it wasn't hosted on my channel, but it's on the Weekly Scrolls channel, and they did a podcast where I ran 3 people through a randomly generated Runecairn dungeon. So it was a cave, essentially a cave delve. Because in Runecairn Wardensaga, you can have a randomly generated delve, so you can either use that for solo play or for like if you want to generate like a one shot or a longer campaign. So I ran a group of 3 through a cave adventure, and it was a lot of fun. So that's on the Weekly Scrolls channel. Bear with me a second, I'll drop a link to that here too. Because that was actually my first time running Runecairn for more than one person. Because I've designed it, it was built from the ground up to be one warden and one player. But it does work well with multiple players. Okay. There we go. Sorry, I should have had this queued up already. There we go. Okay, so I've linked to the that actual play. So it's good. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. And that was last week, just before the campaign launched. So you can, yeah, check that out if you haven't seen it, because that should give you an idea as well. Okay. Yeah, that's another thing. Just to say that, like, if you, because a question that I get asked a lot, and it's one of the FAQs on the Kickstarter, is like, can you play it with more than one person? It's I say 2-player game, but really you can play it solo or you can play it up to like a full party. The only consideration is in my head, the only consideration is the bonfire, because if you're running it rules as written, then if you're in a fight and you die, then you start back at the bonfire. The fight's over. But how does that work if you've got 3, 4, 5 players? And that's like, I give a bit of guidance in the FAQ, and I'm gonna write up a bit more guidance as well on how to run like longer term with multiple players. Essentially, just decide how the bonfire is going to work. So you can either there's rules in Wardensaga for like if you have an occasional extra player, you can summon them in, and you can just kind of drop in, drop out with players. So if you have another player that wants to join the party for a night or for a couple sessions, you can summon them in, and then the adventurer that summons them is essentially the host, if you're familiar with Dark Souls concepts. And so if the host dies, then the summoned player disappears back to their home realm. So you can run it like that, or you can say If there's like a group of 3, for instance, if one of them dies during a fight, the other 2 will keep fighting, and then the third, the dead adventurer, has a chance to respawn once the fight's over. So you can take that approach, or you can take the approach of the fight keeps going, the dead adventurer respawns at the bonfire, then they have to fight their way back to the point. Everything's happening in real time. They have to fight their way back to where they died. So that could be a cool interaction too. But again, that depends on the warden, depends on the players, if they want to be split up like that. So if you're planning like a campaign, or like a couple of sessions with multiple players, it'd be good to decide that ahead of time, like during session 0, say, how are we going to handle bonfire deaths, or how are we going to handle deaths in combat if we've got multiple players. I think it works. It'd probably work best if the dead adventurer just kind of sits out for the rest of the fight and then comes back afterwards. That makes most sense to me, and that seems to be the least disruptive. But again, it's whatever works best for your table and for everyone playing. So I think, yeah, I've some really good questions so far. I think it would be interesting to know what more you'd like to see from Runecairn, like in future supplements or future adventures. Because I kind of work in a vacuum sometimes. Like people have been asking had been asking for Bestiary for a long time. So I was like, okay, cool. I know I need to make a Bestiary, and then I know people want more adventures as well. That's definitely something that's coming, and the magic supplement that I talked about as well. But is there anything else that you'd be interested in anything, any gaps you think that could be filled with a new adventure, a new book, or something like that? That'd be interesting to know. So there is, in the Kickstarter page, there's a link to my Discord. I'll link it here as well. It's something that I never really used that much before. Liza says, need to go, we'll watch the rest later. Thank you, good luck with the Kickstarter. No problem. Yeah, thanks for stopping by, and thanks for your questions. They were really good. Thank you. Yeah, so I'll share out a link to my Discord. It's not something I tend to use that much, but it's something that I want to start using more often. So if you've got Runecairn questions, or if you want to put in some like what more do you want to see from Runecairn, you can. All right, so that's the link to it. Okay. So Nick says, not a gap, but a curiosity. Class is based on key item, correct? Would be possibly seeing additional key items that could influence how an adventure plays. Yes, that's something that I've been thinking about as well. And that's actually one of the slight changes that I've made in Wardensaga Remastered. I've changed the terminology from starting class to background, because a lot of people, I don't think it wasn't clear enough in the original rules that your key item determines essentially your class, like what you can do, what abilities you have. So you can change your approach by changing your weapon or your key item. So I've tried to make that a bit clearer in the remastered. But so for your backgrounds, I definitely want to have new backgrounds. So it'll be essentially, it's a starting package, like what you start the game with. So something like an archer, I thought would be really cool. So the scout starts with a bow, but their focus is more on like up close and personal, knives, backstabs, that kind of thing. But I think it would be cool to have like an archer. and come up with some key abilities tied to that, and have, because the main consideration for me when it comes to backgrounds is how, like, what kind of reactions the adventurer has. Like, the warrior has block and parry, so he can react to attacks. So I just have to, like, that's kind of a key part of it, is what sort of reaction does the key item give the adventurer, and help them avoid attacks. But yeah, definitely gonna have some new key items to have different backgrounds. So Black Veil asks, you mentioned boss fights earlier. Do you have procedures centered around crafting a boss fight or guidance on how a boss fight might differ from a normal combat encounter? So that's a really good question, actually. Not really something that I'd thought about. Like, I have creatures that I consider boss level creatures, and there are some, like in the bestiaries, there are some legendary creatures that basically you'll, like, um unless you like harness the power of the gods, like true power of the gods, then you wouldn't be able to take on. Um, but I do have, like, there are some, like, boss level creatures, but I think having procedures on what a boss is, I think that would be useful. Um, like saying, oh, if you have a boss, then they should have X, Y, Z. Like, they should have a grab, they should have a smash, or they should have, like, some kind of ranged attack. I think that would be useful, because I don't have that at the moment. I've got there's some there's some monsters that do have those components, and I would consider them bosses, but it isn't spelled out like that. But I think that would be good to have, like, a in a future supplement, like, okay, you want to make a boss, this is how you do it. Could potentially do that, tie that into, like, a dungeon creation. Like, here's how to make a dungeon for Runecairn, that kind of thing. And here's the type of boss you might want to put in it. It's giving people the tools to make stuff for themselves is really useful, and I think really valuable. So I think that's a good suggestion. So thank you. The backgrounds that I've got, warrior, skald, scout, seer, are partially based on, like, the four archetypes that I talked about before: warrior, magic user, thief, cleric, priest. But they're also based on Dark Souls archetypes, and they're also based on, like, actual, or, like, kind of like Viking warrior archetypes as well. So it's a mix of all three. So future backgrounds would again be like that, I think. I've got some ideas, so yeah, watch this space for some cool things. The pyre is obviously patterned after the pyromancer from Dark Souls, and also, like, a bit of a blacksmith. And the berserker is more geared toward, like berserkers from Norse mythology and Norse history. So, that's kind of where I am right now with Runecairn. Um, the campaign's got another 26 days, so hopefully we'll keep hitting those stretch goals. And I will, once I have more information about, or more, um, like, once the covers are done, essentially, then I'll be sharing those out once the art starts coming through, or once I get kind of the sample piece that I can add to the Kickstarter page. I'll share those out so you can get an idea of what the book's actually going to look like. I've got some ideas to make the book a bit more special. So watch this space, and if you like the sound of it, If you've backed for the hardcover and you want, like, if you like the sound of the Bestiary, then you can always, you know, change your pledge and upgrade to get the Bestiary. I am really happy with how the Bestiary turned out. So you can see there's Chow Clips' art on the back and Goran Gligovic on the front. So this is essentially what the new Bestiary is going to look like, or the new monster section in Wardensaga. So I used this model for that. But there's lots of good art in here from Felipe, from Kim Diaz Holm. Some really, really nasty monsters. So if you haven't backed for the Bestiary, then check it out, because it's a really nice companion for Wardensaga. These two books together are essentially like what I consider the package. Because there are some monsters in Wardensaga, some base monsters, but this expands a lot. There's 100 new monsters in this, so I'd recommend getting both of them. So, you know, I'm running a Kickstarter, so obviously I would, but, you know, I think they're a good set together. So I think I'm starting to wind down a bit now, so I'll leave it there. Does anyone have any questions or anything like that? You can always ask a question on the Kickstarter. That's a fair point. I need to put that in the chat as well. It's in the description, but I will link it in the chat because I am a professional, he says. Listen to the music as I talk. Okay. There we go. So there's a link to the project. If you haven't backed, then please consider backing. But yeah, if you have any more questions, you can drop them in the Discord. You can add them to the Kickstarter page. Find me on Twitter, Instagram, Blue Sky. I'm at Spirit RPG pretty much everywhere. But thanks everyone for joining the live stream today. I know it was a bit rambly, but that's kind of that's how I do them. Thanks for the questions; they were really good. Made me giving me some things to think about, which is really good. Which is what I want from stuff like this. But yeah, please, if you I'm trying to follow advice I've been given, like don't don't give people too many, don't ask people to do too many things. So Black Veil asks, is the hardback Bestiary of a similar print quality to what remastered will be? Yes, the remastered is going to be better quality, but the Bestiary, just because the Bestiary, the Bestiary's good quality, but the print standard is better for the remastered, because it's going to so there's a print company in Lithuania called Standard Impressa, and they do amazing work. They did the print job for We Deal in Lead and for Into the Odd Remastered. If you're familiar with the quality of those, Bestiary is good quality. It was done through Mixum, but the print quality for remastered is that much better. So yeah, absolutely. But this is an idea. It's tough to see over video on YouTube. But yeah, the remaster is going to be really good quality. So, another good question. All right, I'm going to leave it there. Black Veil says, got both excellent to hear. Cool. Yeah, thanks everyone for tuning in and for participating in the chat. And I will say, follow me on YouTube. if you like this sort of thing, and if you want to hear more rambling from me, if you want to see more videos from me later on. And thanks again, and I'll see you next time. Thank you.